and it looks like, oh, everyone is excited. What are the triggers behind this bullish run?
So thanks for having me. Recent years' performance have largely been driven by in domestic investors, actually, which is what we like to see, given that sensitivity to foreign investor exit. So a market driven by locals is actually positive in my view. I think the next challenge would be growing transaction volumes to a level where maybe a South Africa is, because right now market cap to GDP remains among the world's lowest. But looking at the performance, sector-wise, we've seen the strongest performances from the oil and gas, industrials, and consumers, particularly the brewers. This has to do with the the decent to strong earnings performance from the companies in Q1. So we are seeing that happening, and that's likely to happen across Q2 as well.
All right. And I mean, there are some organizations who have done well, like you said, in the first quarter of this year, 2022. But if we look at some of the best performing equity indexes in the world, you would see that Nigeria is among, Turkey also, yet their respective economies are not doing so well. For instance, Turkey's monetary policy is upside down and inflation is at 70%. We also know the inflation figures here in Nigeria. So the question would be, how is the equity market in Nigeria so disconnected from the country's economic realities?
Well, before that, one could draw maybe one or two similarities between Nigeria and Turkey, because one of Turkey's largest exports is crude petroleum. And we are seeing that correlation between higher oil prices and the stock market in Turkey, despite the inflation challenges that you mentioned. But for Nigeria, what's peculiar right now is the earnings performance from the large cap stocks, which tend to drive the all share index movement. And this is a major catalyst here. We're talking Dangote Cement, MTN, Boa Foods, Nigerian Breweries, and the likes. One important point to highlight is how most of these companies have benefited from product price increases. So a Dangote, for instance, saw a decline in volumes in Q1, but revenues were up 20%. And we're still seeing some demand because the drop in volumes was actually due to lower gas shortage. But it's important to mention that product price increases have played a major role.
All right, let's get back to the Nigeria exchange group really, and look at the different sectors, starting with telcos. Now, MTN hit a new high yesterday, a new high of about 662, right? 262 rather. 262 naira. Now, what has been the appeal of the telco sector to investors?
Besides the Q1 performance, which actually indicated a 31% increase in net profits, one could see investors positioning themselves for the potential for MTN to drive the fintech space following the granting of its PSB license. The space is among the fastest growing, and MTN has that ability to scale and deepen penetration. We saw MTN do this in data. We saw MTN do this years back in voice, and people are expecting the same kind of trend in the fintech space, and we've seen a lot of excitement in that space, and we believe MTN's size and its ability to scale can actually take it to dominate that fintech market.
There are also reports that MTN's revenue grew by 54.5% year on year to about 163 billion naira in the first quarter that ended operations in March this year, and also growth in turnover of about 471 billion naira in just that first quarter. Could this also be a reason why a lot of people are jumping on to make these figures that we're seeing yesterday work?
Yes, I mean that's a major driver. So the Q1 numbers are a major catalyst, and what we've seen is that there are different drivers of their revenues. We've seen their data grow strongly. Fintech business is also growing strongly. They are growing their agency business. You know, a lot of things are playing to the positives of MTN, and investors are responding accordingly.
So while MTN saw 262 naira, I keep saying 600. I hope we get there one day. Well, 262 naira for MTN yesterday. Dangote Cement also hit a new all-time high of 300 naira. What is the appeal of the industrial sector to investors?
Well, the simple answer here is pricing. There's been a sustained recovery in the building and construction space post-pandemic, which is driving demand and leading to cement companies increasing prices with an aggressive increase around December. So demand remains strong, notwithstanding. And, you know, but then the price increases have driven a Dangote Cement earnings growth in Q1, which was due to such price increases. And the stock market has responded to this positively. The challenge here I see for Dangote is that more cement volumes are coming into the market because Bua Cement, which is its competitor, has ambitious expansion plans, and you know that could drive prices, you know, cement prices lower over coming quarters. And then the gas challenge that I mentioned earlier on could also prove disruptive and could weaken supply and volumes. But for now, the bullish bias remains, and you know it looks like it will remain at least till Q2 end.
All right, let's talk about the financial services sector, being, you know, insurance, investment banking, private equity, and venture capital, just to mention some of them, have all been under some pressure, right? Why is that?
Well, for the banks in particular, which are the major drivers of the financial services sector in Nigeria, the regulatory environment isn't helping the banks. Interest rates are steadily rising, which should be good, but the capital at the bank's disposals remain limited due to arbitrary CRR debit, so cash reserves requirement debits from the CBN. So that concern remains widespread in the market. So that regulatory headwind is a major concern. Also, the top tier banks are struggling to grow interest income beyond single digits. And we are yet to also see a material naira devaluation that potentially drives FX revaluation gains. So what happens is when there is a devaluation in the official market, the banks post revaluation gains and that boosts their bottom line. But then we haven't seen that increase in non-interest income. But that said, you know, devaluations of some of these banks remain cheap and compelling. And we actually have buy targets across the likes of Access, UBA, and GTCO.
All right. And then consumer goods, particularly breweries, have been on a bull run. This wasn't the case for the breweries last year. What has changed?
Well, similar to cement, product price action has benefited the brewers. We've seen strong bottom lines in Q1 due to less competition, which is leading to price increases that should have been done years ago. Despite these price increases as well, the market continues to absorb the volumes that, you know, the brewers pushing into the market. And, you know, some brewers can't even still meet demand, which some will actually consider a paradox because real incomes are falling, yet demand for a luxury item like beer remains very strong. But besides that, we're actually we're bullish on Guinness, given the structure of its portfolio, which is leaning away from lager. Lager is very competitive, and Guinness is tending towards the margin accretive non-lager categories like spirits and ready to drink, where there is a lot of pricing power, and you know the market there is a niche market with high income consumers.
All right. Remember, you listening can be part of the show. Send a message to us on WhatsApp, 0809-444-0981. We'd like to read from you before we wrap up the conversation this morning. But Fola, the agro-allied players, Presco, Kobo, climbed yesterday as well, which is a good stuff. What is the appeal in the agro-allied sector for investors?
I guess if one looks at our discussion today, the major theme would be price. Just the ability of these companies to raise prices. And that's what's been driving their performance over the last few years. The likes of Presco and Okomu can increase prices. And given that palm oil is seen as an essential and households actually need it, also the palm oil market in Nigeria is very much undersupplied. So they can actually increase prices and drive their earnings. We've also seen them increase capacity and increase efficiency as well. So they've made such strong investments to do
all. Do you think price increase is also a major factor in what we saw yesterday?
Yes, so it's a function of what they posted in their Q1 numbers, and that positive demand for their stock, ties into or comes from that,
But can this bull run last for say till the third quarter of this year?
Yes, well, I'd say it should. I'll just say that earnings publications will be a major driver to share price movements. And as long as these companies can sustain earnings growth, that rally will continue because the valuations of some of these companies remain cheap when you compare them to EM peers. So that could be a justification for a rally.
There are people who also want to buy stocks, who want to be part of this stock market trading and all that. But the concept of due diligence, because we many times advise that you need to have fair knowledge about this. How important is it to conduct, due diligence when researching stocks on the NGX?
Well, it's always important to do an in-depth research, especially when you are investing your hard-earned cash. So it's not just looking at the stocks that have great potential, but is this the right entry price? One has to also look at other macroeconomic drivers as well. So the importance of due diligence cannot be overstated.
All right, Fola, thank you very much. But we need to wrap up the conversation now. But before we go, can domestic investors on the NGX continue to carry the load in 20 seconds if you can?
Well, we've seen this happen for more than a year now. Aside from foreign investors that move existing money between stocks due to FX illiquidity, we've seen them drive performance in the NSE All Share Index, and this could continue. It just depends on the appetite from the domestic investor market.
All right, we must thank you very much, Fola Abimbola from Stanbic IBTC, for being a part of the show this morning. Thank you very much for your spot on analysis.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's do this again tomorrow at 6:30. Business Express will come to you right here on Smooth 98.1. But let's get the conversation going on Twitter. Do remember to tag in Smooth 981 FM. Also tag at Rotan Code, and you can tag in Stanbic IBTC as well. Good morning.
Business trends beyond the headlines.
Thank you, Fola.
Business Express.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
In association